Left jab, uppercut, leave you laid out on the floor. Try to duck and roll, hit and miss, now you counting stars. Should've practiced more, should've hit the mask, get out there more. Saying that you're the best, you gotta show me son. Actions over words, baby boy, is you real or what? Talking way too much, world combat sports. Talking way too much, world combat sports. Talking way too much, world combat sports.
Yo, big shout out to the hottest chat in the MFing game. A-Side official. No negotiations needed, period. You already know WCS back with another one. Yeah, I've been on the weather a bit, man. So I'm going to try not to cough into the mic, of course. But salute to everyone that's on deck, man. And those of you that's thinking about joining, that may be on the outskirts with your binos or monoculars or just squinching your eyes just to see what's going on. You know what I'm saying? Salute to you. Don't be afraid. You know what I'm saying? I even been touch and go with the game lately, so you should feel extremely comfortable. You feel me? You know how I deliver. You already know. It ain't went nowhere. I have, you know, some boxing topics that I'm just gonna massage a little bit tonight. You know, because they pulsating in the boxing right now, just a little bit. They pulsating a little bit. Boxing is at a point right now where you might think is damn near on life support, or they're giving people pacemakers or giving them apparatuses that, you know, help them breathe a little bit better. Some people became asthmatic after that fight that Crawford delivered with Canelo Alvarez. You know, it's almost like looking at what was that? Army of One, whatever that movie was, where Vegas was a zombie town. I mean, that's pretty much what Crawford did to the boxing community. After he beat Canelo the way he did, man, it was so many zombies running around that mug. They're still out there to this day, man. They refuse to get treatment. But let me talk about my boy Brian Norman Jr. Salute to the champ. You know what I'm saying? Just because he lost his belt, he's still going to transfer his credentials from one fight to the other. So he will always be a champ. That ain't going nowhere. You know, regardless. I mean, every boxer learns one way or the other about certain styles. And Devin Haney was one of those fighters who was the better man on that night. But rumor has it, y'all. Rumor mill has it that his father's not his head coach no more, Norman Sr. So you know what I like to do? I like to go up here and do some required reading like I'm the professor. Because reading is good. Very calming, that melancholy, sung Freud. You know, it puts you in that carefree state, depending on who the reader is. BoxingScene.com, the best in the game. They say Brian Norman Jr. has made a major change in his camp. Following his first professional defeat. This is Boxing Scene. This ain't WCS. In quote, I will say my father is no longer my head trainer at the moment. Norman, now 28-1, 22 knockouts, said in an expansive interview with Najee of Cigar Talk. I have been looking at other options at the moment. I know some things had to get shooken up a little bit. Just had to move different way. That's all. That's from Brian Norman. It goes on to say Brian Norman Sr. had been both the head coach and a prominent voice speaking on behalf of his talented son, guiding him all the way to gaining the WBO title at 147 pounds. But Norman Jr. was dethroned in the third defense as he was dropped by Devin Haney in the second round of their bout this past November 22nd, and ultimately lost via unanimous decision. I like winning. I need to go out here and win, Norman Jr. said. Whatever I feel like I need to do, I'm going to go out there and do it. No disrespect to him or anything like that. Great coach. Of course, he got me to this point. He's still around. But it's just the head trainer. I just feel like I need to venture out a little bit. Norman, a 25-year-old resident of Conyers, Georgia, said he talked with his promotional team at Top Rank and is looking at a potential return date in March or April. I know for a fact that I'm going to get the job done, Norman said. Even still to this day, I'm still the god of war, and I lost the battle, but I will win the war. I will be back and fight Devin Haney. Norman acknowledged they would need to earn another shot at the title, whether against Haney or any other man with belts at 147. That's what I'm talking about. I need to go and knock me a head off real quick. And hopefully right after that, y'all see us like that, he said. All right. Shout out to him, man. Talk your stuff, man. That's, what we look for as boxing fans. We can't mesh all boxing fans together because we all don't think alike. But I appreciate a boxer facing their first defeat, taking a bump in the road, and knowing it's time to get back up, brush themselves out. No matter the embarrassment, no matter the criticism that was going to be forever precipitating, the cloud that's going to be following you everywhere. Hearing the sidebars and little chuckles and the jeers and stuff like that about, oh, we told you so. I like to hear boxers come back and tell you what they're going to do, what their intentions are. I like that. I never considered Brian Norman not to be tough. He never came off as that type of fella to me. He's always been tough. But it's just in boxing, you have to be tough collectively with a lot of other tools in your cachet. You feel me? So salute the Brian Norman Jr. champ. Hope everything work out. Salute the Norman Sr. We've seen things like this, even with the Haneys. Well as I do, we've went through this exact same scenario with Devin Haney. When they saying that he was switching up with Bill and all this other stuff that's going on. We've seen this even with Lopez. They was talking about he was going to switch his coach out and everything. We've seen this before. We have seen this before. We've seen it happen with the Charlo and Errol Spence. I mean, it's just so many fighters you can name that switched up, even with Triple G and Abel Sanchez. I mean, it happens. And you have to ask yourself from the outside, is that decision a decision that's the now decision? Do you need to make that decision now? Or is this a decision that could wait later on? Is it truly affecting your career? You have to ask yourself, is it better to make it, when it comes to Norman Jr., it's better to make the decision off one loss? Hey, he's still young in the game. I say, what better time than now? Because he's still in the maturation process with his own body. He's still in the sport young. So, everybody has to take a moment out sometime if it's on their own doing. They're taking their own initiative or they're forced to do it. I don't think he's forced to do it. I just feel like, due to the moments in the fight, especially the knockdown and how Devin Haney was very technically astute, very, very sharp. Very, very, very precise in his game plan. It may have, gotten Brian Norman out looking at the fight, not so much listening to people, but looking at the fight. Because he said, one thing he'll tell you that he follow boxing all the time. He studies it. So he probably took a little quiet time to himself and looked at that film and seen some things in there and say, hey, maybe it's time for me to go on an exploration and find somebody different as a head coach. You know what I'm saying? Head trainer, rather. And we'll see how they work out, man. Salute to you, man. Decatur, Georgia, stand up. Let me get to the chat right quick, man. Shout out to Blue Hustle in the building. What's good with it, Blue? If the rematch happened, I would like to see it. Norman Jr. can win if he is focused, in my opinion. All right, right. Shout out to AB in the building. I'm okay with Norman Jr. getting outside help. Yeah, shout out to Najee for the interview. I haven't seen the interview with Najee Lopez, but Cigar Talk. Shout out to Cigar Talk, man. He's interviewed some very thorough names out there. So make sure you check out his interview with Norman Jr. All right. He got one out there with a plethora of boxers. Next, let's step on this right here. As you know, if you check the temperature of the boxing community, not just with YouTube, but just overall, when you try to I don't know how to even process it when it comes to boxing, because boxing isn't a solid mass, an entity where you can try to gauge the analysis off of that little, mass. So boxing is just like looking at a data board, a CPU, a computer processing unit. Boxing is everywhere. So collecting the data off boxing and how social media reacts to it, it shows you how certain fans is going to gravitate to certain names and certain fights and so forth, right? We just haven't had that type of magnification in 2025. We was very much anticipating one Pacific fight, and that fight ended up going down so bad. It ended up turning out so bad that for Crawford himself to still be riding extremely, he's not even on the clouds no more. When he beat Spence, right, Crawford was still within the stratosphere. You can see him up there. If you checked out the lighting, if you got pulled out your telescope and you just checked it out right at the right time, you can see that speck up there. Crawford was up there, still in the stratosphere. He was still up there. You can see him floating around after he beat Spence. People were saying, yeah, Spence, he looked this way. He was moving this way. It was said that he was running up the mountain. There was a surplus of information that people was providing, which was their own opinion, right? Nothing wrong with that. It's just not accumulative facts. It's just opinion. But it elevated Crawford so high into the boxing welkin. I mean, it just rocket launched him into a whole nother stratosphere. We're talking about a fighter who was heading into that first fight in 2023 with people saying that he really had no names on his record. They was dogging out Sean Porter for being there because he was in retirement. They did the same thing with Kell Brook. They was just basically trying to say, you need someone on your resume that we can say that Errol Spence has fought already, and just to say you have common opponents of Errol Spence because we just feel like he has the better resume and ultimately the better fighter. He went in there and made Errol Spence look the worst that he's ever looked in his boxing career in any sanctioning bout recorded on his resume. Terrence Bud Crawford gave that man a whooping. Not just any type of whooping. This was a spicy whooping. He peppered that man so bad. Oh my goodness. They say you can smell the cooking all the way up in the top row next to the AC. It got bad. He was cooking Errol Spence so bad that the people was up here requesting for masks. They say they can't take that smell no more. Round for round, from round 2 all the way to the fight was stopped. A lot of action occurred, and he ended up stopping him. Moving on past that, and collectively, you gotta, if you want to squeegee all the, fan comments and what they had to say and what they thought happened, all this conspiracy theories of the cloning, them taking shots at Derrick James, saying that Crawford had loaded gloves. It was just so much going on that you say to yourself, Crawford couldn't win, right? Crawford couldn't win that battle because at the end of the day, they was already against that man anyway. They felt that Crawford was a fighter who wasn't user-friendly, wasn't their top 10 favorite fighter. Could he box? Yes. Should they have gave him credit prior to Spence? Not just measuring him up to Spence, but applying him equally based off his merit, based off his divisional wins. Should they have gave him that common respect? Of course. Did it matter? No, because Crawford's mentality to me is that he's going to do what he have to do anyway. He doesn't care if he has naysayers. He has these belligerent critics out there that's saying what he can't do. He said, I've been proving people wrong my whole life. So his whole mentality is driven different. His motor skills are different. So when he beat Spence as easily as he did, people even attempted to try to give him credit the first 24 to 48 hours, and then all of a sudden they went right back to being haters. But this type of hate didn't hit the same. You know why it didn't? Because he absolutely banished what was formerly known as Errol Spence's fan base. He banished him. He single-handedly banished him. Him, Crawford himself, and the Crawford supporters. Collectively, we destroyed Errol Spence's fan base. And it felt good doing it too. But what I can tell you is that sometimes when you destroy a fan base like that, you want to hope and pray that they come back just a little bit. They band up together, have a conversation, get their thoughts, write down some bullet points, re-strategize, come back and say, hey, we back at it. You didn't run us off. That's what we want to hear. It never happened, yo. It never happened. The Errol Spence fan base, oh my God. These channels that was out here just talking A1, they knew concisely that what was going to happen. They was giving their predictions. They was prognosticating. They was prognosticating victory, y'all. You couldn't tell them anything. They was garrulous head individuals. You know what I'm saying? They was talkative. You couldn't tell them nothing. And then all of a sudden, they was forced into seclusion, ostracized off one win. One win. Just imagine a fighter like Crawford soaking in and soaking in. He's the one that's splitting the ropes, soaking in all the criticism from these fan base, these Errol Spence fan base that was saying what? There's no way that you can do this. There's no way that you can do that. There's no way. It's no way. It's no way. And Crawford's just soaking it all in. It's going into his bloodstream. It's giving him motivation. He continued to get stronger and stronger. Bomac in the lab. The whole team. They just getting better and better. They listen to all this shit. They go in there and make it too easy. After that, where the credit should be raining. I'm talking about raining sunshine rays. The glow should be so bright that the fight fans don't have no other choice except to put their hand up and say, dang, he did it, y'all. He did it. I can't come in to the left. I can't come in from the right, front, or back with any type of negativity or bias. He did what he's supposed to do. But not only that, the way he went in there and handled Errol Spence, he allowed the Errol Spence fans to get a front row seat, whether you was at home in your living room, whether you was in the arena. He beat his fan base up all the same. Crawford's record should be 40, 42 and 0, 43 and 0, 45 and 0. No. His resume really should be like 6,500. I mean, it depending on whether you gathering the consensus numbers from. They should include the fan base in there because it was monumental on how he destroyed their fan base. And they say, oh, W says, just let it go. No, I'm never going to let it go. Because when you listen to these individuals that used to be, they call themselves the former fan base of Errol Spence. They was up here spreading lies, parading around here as unscrupulous type of individuals, unsavory characters, just saying what this man cannot do, mentioning Gamboa's name every chance you get, not recognizing the titles that he won and the champions that he beat to get it. He had to prove it to him, and he did it easily, viciously. He did it famously. Let's move past that. Let's step on because the rematch clause was activated, and we all know what happened. That certain individual could not make the rematch clause. It couldn't make the rematch clause, right? Hold on for a second. He couldn't make the rematch clause, but he did have time to put the patch on the left eye, the right eye, whatever. In the back of his head, he did have time to put that patch on. But this is where the boxing universe start to see the vortex start to form. Because when these critics that was questioning if Crawford had what it take to go in there and beat Spence, and the way he did it, they themselves had to genuflect. They themselves had to recognize the truth when it was in front of them. They themselves had to speak a different language, opposite of what they were saying before the fight happened. And when that started to go down, certain individuals that was used to listening to these people talk about, yeah, you know, I like so-and-so because he keeps it real. He keeps it genuine and sincere about saying what Crawford doesn't have, what it takes, and how much Errol Spence is better. You know, they love that. But when they had to say, hey, I got to be honest with you, Crawford, his skill set is better than I thought. He's much better than I thought. I would be a hypocrite to get on here and say that it was because Errol Spence had an accident, weight drain, and all those other fictitious rumors that was floating around and, you know what I'm saying, cluttering the air quality on that night. But not only that, as time continued to tick, right? More and more people start to join in talking about that fight. More and more time start to fly by. And fights were going on at the time. But then you start to hear the little shimmers in the boxing universe where the vortex started to form and you saw the light from a distance and you start to hear that Terrence Crawford may challenge Canelo Alvarez. And I remember hearing the laughs of these people, some of the same people who was laughing when it was time for him to step in there with Errol Spence. They knew for a fact he was about to get swiped. But when he brought up, when the information, the news started to translate, especially make his rounds in social media about Crawford potentially moving up 2 weight classes. I know he moved up to 154. We're skipping over that right now, just like Crawford did 60 up to 68. When the news started to swirl that he was going to step in there and fight the face of boxing in Saul Canelo Alvarez, when you're talking about human beings that deem themselves boxing aficionados in this sport, they will swear up and down that their knowledge, their depth of knowledge, their aptitude is untouched, unmatched. I'm telling you factual information that there's weight classes for a reason, and Terrence Bud Crawford, there's no way that he can make this jump. What is he doing? Canelo has moved up as high as 175. He's been in there with Sergey Kovalev, Dmitry Bivol. It's no way that Crawford would ever step in the ring with those two guys. They was given every scenario. Then they went back to speaking on Crawford's name in an incompetent way. If they didn't receive enough visual instructions when he stepped in there in 2023, they was doing the same thing. But I understand why they was going that route with Canelo. Canelo was different. Canelo was that guy who's shown that, hey, I get like a little waiver. I get like a little hall pass waiver with Floyd Mayweather now. I was a little bit undeveloped, and he gave me a clinic. I get another hall pass going in there with Dmitry Bivol, a fighter that was from a lower weight division, but was currently the super middleweight undisputed champion. So I tried to challenge to be what they say, challenge myself, daring to be great. That's exactly what the hall pass was for Canelo Alvarez. But with Terrence Crawford, none of that mattered. None of that was taken in consideration. None of that documentation was even needed because they said he was just too small. If you're looking for variables to justify your argument, when Crawford's name came up to fight Canelo Alvarez, some of the variables would be undersized, right? Undersized. Lack of opposition. Lack of experience. Then they threw in egotistical. They want to say, "Oh, you're doing a little bit too much now. You got the win over Errol Spence. Just slow your roll." They start sounding like Charlo. Hey, just sit down, be quiet, take less money, and know how to lose. like I did. You know, it's just the variables that they was lining up for Crawford was clearly and simply diluted and biased once again. They wanted to just wipe away Errol Spence because at one point in time they was pushing for Errol Spence at 47 to face Canelo Alvarez. But in this factor, since Terrence Bud Crawford already demolished Errol Spence, they looked at it like, well, Errol Spence couldn't have taught you anything to fight Canelo because he never really made it outside of 47. And also they wanted to apply once again that he was damaged goods, y'all. They said this man was damaged goods because of the car accident. Even though when he came back, he beat Danny Garcia. He beat Yordenis Ugas. You know, when he came back, he said no tune-ups. But to the audacity of Terrence Bud Crawford to even consider a name as Canelo Alvarez, one of the recent pound for pound best, one of the highest paid fighters in the sport. His accolades shine a halo of themselves, well earned. Yes, you can put the clenbuterol in there, absolutely. But at the end of the day, he's in the Hall of Fame right now. When people want to call you back and give you all this money, that means you are a prize fighter. You're much more than a prize fighter. Canelo Alvarez is much more than a prize fighter because his ticket, his price in itself, he's guaranteed to get paid. But for Crawford was still looking for that ticket. And you know, you heard the people say that Crawford don't deserve to get paid but this much money. You know, they're acting like Crawford sometime hired them in the summer as interns and say, hey, I want you to be my CFO. Now I'm going to give all of you a spreadsheet of my bank account and all the properties that I have over here. And one to come up with the best business spreadsheet of commercial and residential real estate properties and tell me how I can expand and double and triple my money will become a full-time employee. Okay? I want you to do your best. Now, I left my pen on some of those sheets. Don't worry about that. She made a mistake. I just kept it on there. Make sure you don't ever try to use my PIN number or my social security number information that's on this sheet, okay? And don't worry about the numbers. You know, people probably looked at those numbers and say, hey, he ain't got that much money in the bank. Maybe he need to stop buying properties. Anyway, let me get back to this. Crawford really never been a fighter who can get what we consider the bag. I'm not saying people don't consider Crawford getting the bag, 10, 15 million, 20 million. They consider that the bag a little bit, but that's not a Canelo bag. You know what I'm saying? That's not the Canelo bag. So they're looking at it like, for Crawford to get a fight with Canelo is going to be the line shareholder. That's point blank, period. We all know Canelo getting the lion's share. We can bring you 10 or 15 motherfucking mules up here with broken backs, and they'll tell you, yes, we used to carry his money on our back all the way back to Mexico. It hurt. Too heavy. I lost so many of my friends in the desert. They'll tell you that load of money hurt. So what do you do? It get to a point where you got to make those types of decisions and invest in yourself. Sometimes investing in yourself, it can take little or it take a lot when it comes to monetary. You know, the little may be able to get you in the door and say, hey, I want to seize this moment, this opportunity, and then the rest is going to pay itself off. Or they say, well, I want to make the most of this. They might screw me over. So I want to go in there and ask for a bit more than they're trying to give me because I'm fighting Canelo Alvarez. He's fighting Terrence Crawford. But we all know Canelo Alvarez was the line shareholder. But what Crawford do? Crawford still went in there and took, from what I understood, like 15 million something. I really don't get into numbers like that. But I really want to get into the fight aspect. The anticipation for Terrence Bud Crawford, Canelo Alvarez, was it comparable to Errol Spence, Terrence Crawford build up like 5+ years? No. The wars, the broken relationships, the smear campaigns and everything that happened on this social media was just rampant, yo. I mean, just the hatred and vitriol that bled, the venom. It was so much that was out here on social media. With Crawford Canelo, more so, it seems like with everything that had passed, including the fight with Crawford and Spence up to this point, it seemed like even the fan base had changed a little bit. Yeah, it did. It seems like it wasn't the same type of buzz that you thought it would have, because you got to look at it. A lot of these channels, that used to be on all the time, they was no longer talking boxing. They was no longer motivated to come on here and talk boxing. So when the fight was catching buzz and people start to weigh in, they start to rally the charge on what fighter they was going. It's easy for a lot of people to say, I'm just going to stick to who I really been rooting for anyway. Just like when Anthony Joshua was hot. People had very small thought process on selective process on if they was going to choose Anthony Joshua or his opponent. They say, I'm going for Joshua. With Canelo, it's somewhat the same way. They say, hey, we're going for Canelo. Those are the ones that was Canelo fans, and those were the ones that was Crawford haters. It was just like Deontay, same thing. The Crawford haters went for Canelo Alvarez. Some of those fan bases that went for Canelo Alvarez also was those zombies of the former fan base called the Errol Spence. I don't want to call him the other name. I'm changing up. You know what I'm saying? That Errol Spence fan base, they also joined in. Why? Because they wanted some type of redemption, man. If they can just get just a smidgen of redemption, just a little droplet, just like a vaccination, they felt like they would have been cured, y'all. They would have just been cured. That's all they need is a little droplet. Just give me a little bit so I can get back to the way it used to be. So they went in there and jumped on the Canelo's system. And a lot of those people blended in very well because we forgot about them. They was over there in those chats talking about, talking about how Canelo was going to dog Crawford out. Crawford was going to get stopped. He's going to punch if Gamboa was able to hurt him at this division. What you think, Canelo? Oh, man, they was going back. You heard me on here talking about, man, they should pay Gamboa some type of residual for dropping his name like that. Crawford was once again in the spotlight. But this time, his fan base and a lot of new fans was there for the charge also. They was there to take on that front line and say, so what you talking about now? How do you believe Canelo is such a great fighter? Let's go through, peel back the pages. You know what I'm saying? We don't have to go to the index. Peel back the pages and let's start talking about what fights that would have fancied you as a boxing fans that you feel like makes Terrence Bud Crawford unqualified to step in the ring with Canelo. Canelo's style really wasn't something that people was just in awe of. Like it couldn't be figured out. But him as an experienced Mexican fighter, that was a fact. Canelo is an experienced Mexican fighter and been in there with some names. That is a fact. He beat Triple G, well, the ones we actually care about was the first and the rematch. Nobody gave a damn about the trilogy. But he has his criticism too in his resume. He just has the better names. See, they was hoping that Terrence Crawford and Errol Spence would be Triple G and Canelo Alvarez. They was really hoping that would evolve into something special that the boxing annals can record and we can talk about as fans for a long time. But he never had that. Crawford was knocking their heads off. He didn't care about building up no freaking trilogy. He was knocking heads off. And that was the empty space that people had to deal with when it came to the fight finally being official, the words finally coming to fruition. They're in stone now. The ink is dried. The fight is on deck. We showing up to Vegas, packed stadium, Allegiant Stadium. You know, everybody done said what they think gonna happen, how it's gonna happen, when it's gonna happen. All the little monetary bets was out there. Yo, if I want to do a comparison between Spence and the Canelo situation when it came to the money, Canelo situation, it's just kicked a little harder, yo. It's just like your little 5-year-old walking up behind a horse and you're not paying attention, and that horse feels something on his back. Hey, that horse feels something on the villain's back leg. And that thing bucked the crap out of that baby. Kicking dead in his forehead, man. I'm serious. I mean, Jesus. You know, we at a point right now, right? Where we at a point right now where when I said you compare the two, and Canelo just bucked, the Canelo defeat just buck harder. You get to the arena, man, it's surreal. Euphoria. This is what fight nights are made of. Not only just any fight, but legendary legacy fights. Legendary fights. Both fighters' training camp went superbly. All the pressure is done. All the, oh my God, you know, Crawford's doing too much, trying to bully Canelo. He's going to pay the ultimate price for that. He should stick to sportsmanship. And then, you know, Canelo coming off the skull fight that no one wants to remember. But yet, Canelo is the type of fighter that can get past a performance like that. He don't care. He still got the paycheck. You know, Turkey Al-Sheikh said, oh my God. You know, supposedly, you know, Skull was like, hey, they told me not to put too much action in on him. But it get to fight night. Man, anxiety is, the cup overfloweth, man. The bell rings, and right out the gate, Crawford established the pressure point already. No, it's no bleeding just yet, but he applies pressure to Canelo that a lot of boxing fans never would have expected out the gate. See, with Errol Spence, when he dropped him in the second round, yeah, that was unexpected too. But we're talking about 147, right? We're talking about comparing physiques at 147. But when we look at Canelo Alvarez, he's been in there with bigger fighters, right? So for the fight to be this early and fresh, who's gonna come out there and try to bully Canelo? Not little ass Crawford. But see, he wasn't little no more. He put on that muscle mass. He did the right strength and conditioning. Superb fight camp. He went out there early on in the fight from the first round and established pressure. His jab, we already know, surgical. He was ringing Canelo's doorbell early. Canelo was trying to get off the couch to answer it, and Crawford kept on freaking sending that jab through the window. Bing! Bing, 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 bing. It started to sound like a church bell. And then the fans were like, it was a lot of Canelo money sitting out there, boy. Woo, it was a lot of Canelo money. I could smell it at home. I say, you smell that Canelo money? Man, it's a lot of people who have bets on Canelo. I can smell it back here. Second round came. Oh, yeah. I mean, if Canelo just winked his eye and moved his head a little bit towards Crawford, you know, the Mexican fight fans, like, yeah, there you go. He headbutt him. But man, Crawford was really taking the momentum early in the fight. I'm talking about technical momentum. He was applying, he was taking the technical momentum away. He wasn't going in there wild, trying to knock out Canelo. Everything he did was very technically sound, but with bad intentions. And then as the rounds went through, you start to say to yourself, and I know there's a lot of Canelo fans that were saying this too. You know, even I said it. I was like, Crawford's having such an easy go. I'm curious now as to if Canelo Alvarez is gonna switch gears, or is the clutch, is it a brand new clutch? I mean, is the clutch worn out a little bit? Is there some worn out plates in the clutch? I don't know. Did they use fully synthetic? I mean, what's going on here? I started to question, like, Crawford's supposed to be the older fighter, heavy legs when he fought Madrimov. Now he's in there looking like he's at 135, 140. You know, he's acting like he's rejuvenated. He came back from a worldwide international ayahuasca, a 2-week ayahuasca in the rainforest. This man looked like he was reinvigorated up there punching the shit out of Canelo. You had people ringside, you know, on the phone. Hey, should we make those Canelo bobbleheads right now? You think they'll sell? I mean, they was trying to make some money off that shit. Canelo seemed like he was a bit puzzled. The combinations that Crawford was able to land on Canelo so easily without any type of return. The return that'll make Crawford say, let me slow down a little bit. Never. It never happened, y'all. That shit never happened. Canelo landed, you know, about 3 good punches on Crawford, you know, because the floating marks that was up there, it's like, can he handle Canelo's power? Can he handle Canelo power? They weren't really concerned about Crawford because Canelo's taking punches from the bigger guys at 175. They weren't sitting up here giving Crawford that check in the box. So when Canelo finally touched Crawford and he took it, it was a problem. Canelo was getting outboxed by a fighter who came up, depending on who you're talking to, 147, 154. But he did move up from 60 to 68 without fighting a single opposition prior to attending that division. He has never fought an opponent at 168 pounds. He did not take a tune-up fight. For him to be in there fighting Canelo the way he did, the way he was in the pocket, firing off. Once again, technically, precision. His punch accuracy was on, very much spot on what he wanted to do. Arm traps, countering. The speed was there. The way he showed no fear to say, I'll stay in here and bang with you a little bit. And even when Canelo, got out from the hard guard and started to return some power punches, that right hand, Crawford slipped underneath it like they've been working on that since he was in grade school. He just made it look too damn easy. I know there's a lot of people in that arena was trying to goddamn make some drastic moves. Cut the lights. Cut the lights, goddamn it. They almost sound like Apollo's trainer when he was saying throw in the towel. Cut the lights. Cut the lights, goddamn it. Cut the lights. Yeah, they wanted the lights to be out in Allegiant Stadium. They wanted that fight to be stopped and called a no contest due to a power failure. Somehow the grid was shut down. They had somebody cut the lights. Cut the goddamn lights. Crawford was beating Canelo up. Too easy. Once again, this black fighter from Omaha, Nebraska, up here proving even a larger crowd that he can do what you say he couldn't do. Rumble, young man, rumble. Rumble, young man, rumble. God dang. I couldn't even believe Canelo was getting beat up like that. I thought it was a possibility before the fight that Crawford could knock Canelo down. I did. I really thought that he could knock him down. But he didn't need to knock him down because the fact that he went all 12 rounds with Canelo with so many highlight moments in that fight, for him to go all the way to the final tick in such an epic championship showcase, a legacy fight. Never fighting an opponent 168 pounds before to earn the decision over Canelo Alvarez. Canelo is still his name still hold weight in the boxing, the boxing annals. He's still in the pantheon of boxing, Canelo. But Crawford's status quo as a boxer was elevated to space. His status as a boxer is no longer considered earthly. His name is in boxing royalty on a whole nother planet. We're not talking about anything concerning on earth. He will be recognized here on earth, but what he was able to do in his achievements and the way he should be revered, you need a spacesuit for that. If you want to go on a tour, you need a space. You need to get with one of those damn scientists over there, those rich scientists, and see can they take you on a vessel, and maybe you can see, Crawford's freaking spirit floating around up in space. This man is enshrined in boxing forever as one of the best to ever do it. You can't take it away. It was amazing how not only he defeated Canelo, but shut down his fan base just like he did Spence. Crushed him, yo. Crawford crushed him. And you know how he crushed him? With that whoop-ass style. Terrence Bud Crawford has that whoop-ass style. He just has a whoop ass style. Point blank, period. You know all the tools. Yeah, he got this, he got that, he got this. He know how to throw this hook. He know how to throw that. There's no numbers with Crawford. He's past all that. He knows it. Yeah, of course, when they train it, remediate it, yes, numbers in there. But he has a whoop ass style because his mentality is he can make those type of adjustments. He's very, very educated in his craft. He knows the science of his craft, and he absolutely delegated that with Canelo Alvarez in true legendary fashion, yo. And I understand the haters didn't quite appreciate me being on the winning side again, and I appreciate, you know, um, being a part of the celebration with the Crawford supporters, reveling on the winning side in glory. I mean, that's what we do. When it comes to the Crawford supporters, man, it's just certain part of boxing when it comes to Crawford that we kind of spoiled a little bit. And it's going to take us a long time to even feel just a little twinge. Just a little twinge of if we're a little bit of, oh man, this is gonna be a challenging fight. Or this, we just been in a part of history so much that, man, our belly full. We done ate some good steak. I'm serious. You know what I'm saying? Prime steak. Woo! That soft tender. I mean, our seafood with Errol Spence, yeah. I mean, we ate so much of that, they had to call us up and say, hey, yo, it's a shortage going on. Chill. Are y'all good? You can always come back and eat another day. All right, we good. But with this Canelo win, though, we was more sit back, posture different. More so, pass me the Grey Poupon, please. And that's the way we was feeling. We was all sedity and shit. Excuse me. Does anyone of you feel like I do? You feel like winners. I do. How would you just bring that up? I do feel like a winner. Me too. You too? Okay. I mean, we felt like winners, yo. Again. Because he made it look so dang good that when they talk about it in history, they can't bring up no controversial moment. Man, the fight itself went down the way it's supposed to go down. His team did what they were supposed to do. I absolutely enjoyed the whooping that he put on Canelo. And I'm glad Canelo won another black fighter. They couldn't use that. I'm glad Canelo didn't have an accident. He didn't fall off his horse and stuff. And they said, oh, he never really quite recovered from that hip, breaking his hip, falling off that big ass stallion that he got. Everything was perfect. Skull didn't put a beating on him, so they couldn't say, he never recovered from that. Crawford did what he needed to do. And I salute you, man. I salute you for giving us that type of fight where it was just mano a mano, yo. It was mano a mano, man. Mano a mano. That's what the fight fans was looking for. Punch for punch. Man, come on, yo. Slip for slip. Pivot for pivot. Both fighters was collecting data on a high level. And only one fighter came out victorious, and that was Terrence Bud Crawford. The one that sits on the throne. Heavy as a head, who wear the crown. You already know. Let me go to the chat, yo. Let me go to the chat. Shout out to Carlos. I see you in the building, Carlos. Salute to you. Hope all is well your way. Would Turkey give Bud $100 million to come out of retirement for this next fight? Good question. Does Crawford, do you believe his price tag right now deem him $100 million fighter? Absolutely. Absolutely. What's up, pound for pound? What's good with you? I was at the Canelo versus Crawford fight. The atmosphere was epic. That's what's up, man. We had somebody that was actually at the fight that was on the right side of the win. You know what I'm saying? That's great. That's great to hear, yo. It was good you was able to what the only thing I'm disappointed with you being in this chat is that you didn't goddamn grab a goddamn old jelly jar and goddamn get some of that aura and you know run that bottle through the air and everything and snap the lid on it. You know what I'm saying? I would like to see what that would have been going for. I could have, you know, try to give you a little bit of numbers so I can get that jar. I would like that jar with that Crawford era in it, you know? That's the only thing, bro. None too much. I ain't asking too much. It would have been good if you would have put some of that in the jar, yo. Bud could have KO'd Canelo at the end of the 12th round if he stepped on the gas a little bit, if he wanted to. Well, I don't know, you know, when it comes down to Bud, he's him, right? So to go for the knockout or just to go to 12 rounds and you know beat him up for 12 rounds, which one really sticks the hardest? You know, if Canelo could have been dropped, right? You said KO, but if he could have been dropped, would he have stayed down for the KO? Like, did Crawford possess that ability? Would he have gotten back up? And Crawford, you know how he closes. Could he have closed him out? It would have been good to see. But that's one of those situations in hindsight, man, that I just can't give you the data, the conclusive data that you're looking for, because I'll be speaking off something that's already happened. You know? That's a good point. Yeah, Bud the GOAT, man, in this era, yo. I feel privileged to be able to, you know, witness that man in 2 epic fights in boxing. And for him to just be the spaceman right now with the whoop-ass style. This dude is in space. He's not amongst the boxing community anymore as he once walked. Bud is in a whole different suit. You know, the halo, the glow around Bud is just different in general, period, right now. Hey, but shout out, big shout out to the hottest chat in the MF game. You already know, A-Side official, no negotiation needed, period. Until next time, we'll do it again. I'm out.